The numbers told the story. They always do.
It's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
This is a numbers game with Gil Alexander on VSiN.
All right, welcome into a numbers game. He's Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo, still in for Gil Alexander on a well-deserved vacation. Kelly, at this point, is it still a vacation or has Gil relocated? I mean, has anyone heard from Gil in the last week and a half?
That's a good point. I've talked to him a couple times. I mean, he's bouncing around. He's doing his usual couple weeks after the Super Bowl where he's all over the place a bit. So I can't actually answer the question of what city is he currently
He could be off the grid in Costa Rica for
He really
all we
could.
know right
Yes,
now.
he really could.
He could be living his best life, just sipping his morning coffee, monkeys swinging tree to tree in the background behind him.
He does his annual Miami Beach. So, like, he hits Miami but I think that's been done already. Yeah,
is he in a Club 11 guy or a Club Space guy?
That's a great question. We'll have to ask about when he gets back.
I mean, Space.
He looks like a Club Space guy to me.
I could see him doing an all-nighter at Space just for the mimosas and the brunch if you make it to sunrise.
Joe, you've derailed us already. I lost. I think I've been in Club Space twice. I lost someone in there one night. It was one of the worst nights of my life. We could not find each other. The person
you lost, did you show up with her or did you meet her there?
I showed up with her. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you lost.
Yeah, and then I lost.
Sounds like prom night.
It was a problem. It was a problem, bro. It was a problem.
It was a problem last night. Here. This is the segue because it's a sports show, technically, even though there's no sports this week. UConn's first half was a big problem last night. The Huskies taking on Villanova. They end up getting there in the second half, outscoring them 40-25 in the final 20 minutes of work. No cover for UConn. A lot of people were on the Huskies -8, -9. They, what's up with Dan Hurley's team, man? I mean, this is a team that I think Will Hill, who actually came out and gave out UConn yesterday on the program, had the funniest tweet I saw. He goes, UConn can still get the three-peat if they win the NIT. Because this is a team that, I mean, they're going to get in the tournament based on reputation and whatnot, back-to-back champs, obviously. They don't look like a tournament team.
Yeah, this was a struggle. We were sitting on the show yesterday and watching this number kind of fly up, taking a lot of bets. UConn comes back down, closes 8.5, and can't get there again, man.
Just a really disappointing showing from this team. A lot of big college hoops action. It was a jam-packed Tuesday slate. Only one play on my end. Didn't get there with Texas A&M. First half looked good. They were controlling the tempo. The Aggies were setting the pace really well, up 31-30 at the break. And then second half just completely got away from this Buzz Williams team. And, this A&M team, it's a team that it needs to shut you down on defense. Their offense is not really going to compete. I believe for KPOM ratings, they're just 40th in offensive efficiency. So not terrible, but certainly not in the top tier, not in the upper echelon. And that second half, they got outscored 40-23 in Starkville by Mississippi State. It was the Hubbard show. He finishes with 25 for the Bulldogs. The Aggies lose by 16. That was the lone play of the day for me. But other SEC action, the Florida Gators. I feel like, everyone's talking about Auburn and Alabama. The Gators are quietly ranked second. They jump Duke. They jump Bama. And Kelly, they're sitting there 23-3 straight up. Maybe more impressively, 18-7 against the number.
Yeah, this is if this team becomes really real, Joe, this is going to be a really long March and April for me based off of friends and family that went to this school. Yeah, it's Gators having success is never fun for me. Never fun. But they are, like you're saying, every time I turn them on, they look damn impressive, and they looked like that again last night.
Is everyone who went to that school just obnoxious, or is it just me?
No, they all. I will go unbiased. Everybody who went to Florida State, and Miami are all obnoxious.
Okay.
I'm not going to say
I feel like
Florida
the Miami
State
crowd is fun, but I don't know. Maybe it's because they're pretentious. I'm a little pretentious, so maybe we just gel in that.
That makes sense. That totally checks out.
Florida State. I actually went to high school with a kid who went to Florida State. Now he's a doctor. I don't know. I would personally, if I saw my doctor went to Florida State, I'd probably be like, I'm going to find a new doctor.
It might be a good call.
Keeping it moving in the college hoops world, Houston gets there with the cover at Arizona State. Big first half from the Cougars. This is a squad under Kelvin Sampson that we all know every year Houston's going to defend. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be a top 5, if not the number 1 defense in the country. This team, two things about them. they're not prone to letdown spots like they typically have been in recent years. I mean, you look at them in conference play, they're 14-1 straight up in the Big 12. This was a conference where they were going to have to compete with Iowa State, who still is nothing to scoff at. I mean, they're the 8th ranked team in the country. They had a big win over Colorado last night, but Houston has had no issue running through the Big 12. Iowa State can't keep up with them. As good as they are, they're certainly a tier beneath them. Kansas, we'll get to them in a minute. They're an absolute bleep show over there in Lawrence. Just a total disgrace, the Jayhawks are. This Houston team, I've drank the Kool-Aid on them in the past. I've picked them in March Madness to win it all in the past, and they've let me down at one point or another. This could be the team that does it because they shoot better than any Kelvin Sampson team I've seen. And like I said, they're not prone to that letdown spot.
Yeah, so the top of the futures board would tell us there's a few different tiers, right? You've got Auburn and Duke up by themselves in kind of tier 1, and then it's Florida, Houston, and Bama that are kind of all right near each other. You think those 3 teams belong kind of that second tier and are the next biggest threats for those two at the top?
I mean, absolutely. And I'd actually have had Bama in tier 1 up until Saturday, and then Auburn went to Tuscaloosa and handled them pretty well in a game Bama was favored in. So prior to that game on Saturday, I'd have been leaning Bama tier 1. I still think they can get there. I mean, who's to say, they meet up in the SEC tournament championship game or whatever? Who's to say Bama can't get there? What I love about this Alabama team, and we'll have more on them shortly because they're one of my 4 best bets tonight. A lot of college hoops action this evening for me. Not only are they the number 1 scoring offense in the country, Kelly, now they're not the most efficient team. They rely heavily on volume, but for a team that relies heavily on volume, it's important to crash the boards, right? Because if you're not making a large percentage or a large chunk of your shots,
clean them up.
Got to clean them up, get your second chance opportunities. Bama does that just about as well as anyone. Number 2 nationally in points per game, number 1 in boards per game. So that's a pretty lethal combo, I would say, for a team come March. And I believe, we've got the Ken Pom criteria of teams that are, I don't have it off the top of my head. I know someone was actually tweeting it at the show. And I think you have the tweet right in front of you, if I'm not mistaken, where you have to be top 20 in offense, top 20 in defense. There's a certain criteria for strength of schedule and whatnot.
Yeah.
I believe Alabama, although no, maybe on defense they wouldn't fit that. Is that a red? Is there red next to Bama?
The red would be with the head coach with Sweet 16 experience. That's usually where they stuff.
But Bama's got that.
I'm sorry, I'm reading wrong line. It is the defense, yes.
Oh, it's the
okay.
I was
reading Florida.
I was going to say Bama got their Sweet 16 experience last year.
Yeah, I was reading
Florida doesn't have that. Okay. How many schools, I'm curious, I don't know if you could tally it up. What are we at? 6 schools that fit all the criteria? I think the craziest one as you go far down the line was Maryland. Might fit all of the criteria.
That's interesting. We brought that up last week. We were talking about Dinzig betting that last week. So yeah,
right. And I think they went to Nebraska, and I think Dinzig said he would lay, or were they laying 1.5 points? I think they were catching 1.5 points, and they won the game outright in Lincoln. But I think Maryland is probably the school on that list that ranks the lowest, but fits all the criteria. There's one school on that list, man. It fits all but one criteria. And
there's a lot of those, yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a lot, but there's one that I think I'm going to bet today right after the show. And Circa, last I saw, has the best price on this team at 125-1. So I might have to get in on the Clemson Tigers. What's the one criteria they lack? Is it defense?
This would be
27th?
Defense for them. Yep.
Right, but all right. So the criteria, you got to be top 20. Think about it. They're 27th. They got a few games they could work their way into the top 20, and then boom, they fit all the criteria after that. Right? They've got a lot of returning players. They've got the power forward, the white kid who's been there, who's instrumental in their last NCAA run to the Elite Eight. I think this Clemson team's frisky. 125. Now, this is why you got to shop around. I think I saw DraftKings was 60-1 on Clemson. And then right behind us at Circa here, 125-1.
Yeah.
So you always got to shop around because, I mean, you're talking that's not just a minor difference. That is a ridiculous difference.
Yeah, it really is. You can find those two when it gets to longer odds. So like you said, yeah, make sure you're shopping around. And I know when Gil gets back, he'll be looking forward to getting into the college basketball formulas and everything like that for the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I will say with college hoops, there aren't too many formulas and whatnot that I pay attention to. That system is a big one.
Yep.
Those criteria, that's massive. Big Ten action. Michigan State got there. I'm glad I stayed away from this one. I was intrigued by Purdue catching as many as 4. And Sparty got there, laying 3.5, laying 4, depending where you shop. 75-66. just really controlled the pace there. Didn't let the Boilermakers get much going at all on the offensive side of things. 13th ranked Purdue, 14th ranked Michigan State. Battle of a couple teams atop the Big Ten. You know, I don't know how to figure this Big Ten too much. Wisconsin, 11th ranked team in the nation. They blew Illinois out. I mean, this is an Illinois team. One night looks like they can hang with anyone. The next night, they look absolutely lost in space. They lose by 21 in Madison. I don't think there's a team in the Big Ten that I look at and I say, come March, they scare me. I could see the Big Ten almost being, you know, out of it by the Sweet 16, maybe one team in the Sweet 16.
That's interesting. Yeah, these conference odds are pretty tight too, right? Michigan minus 135, Michigan State plus 210, Wisconsin 7-1, Maryland 14-1 to win the regular season conference. Yeah,
I wonder if Michigan State might be worth a play there. I got to make sure. I got to check, see if they have Michigan left on the schedule, because I think the Wolverines got the best of them their last time out head-to-head. You know, now there's so many teams in every conference that you don't know who's playing who twice. You don't know when they're playing next. But if you look at the standings there, Michigan 12-2, Michigan State 12-3. But I think they lose the tiebreaker there. I don't know, though. Getting Izzo at longer than 2-1. They closed just as I thought. They closed the year with Michigan. Oh, no, they haven't played Michigan yet at all.
Yeah, they have them twice. Yeah.
Wow. They got a little bit of a rough go at Maryland, home against Wisconsin. So yeah, definitely a tougher schedule. That explains the 2-1 odds. Folks, we've got a great guest list coming at you for the remainder of the show. More college hoops with our friend Jim Root in just about 20 minutes over at the Three-Man Weave, of course. Hour 2, going to talk NBA with VSiN's own JVT. Of course, Michael Montesano going to break down some NBA awards with us, as well as college basketball futures on top of that. It's a hoops-heavy show. God knows it's all we got going on this week, really. It's a numbers game. He's Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo. Stay locked into VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Numbers game continues here on VSiN alongside Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo. Hot and heavy college hoop slate coming in on a Wednesday night. Lot of action. Just gave out my 2 Missouri Valley Conference plays. Illinois, Chicago catching 10 and a hook at Drake, and Bradley laying a point at Illinois State. I've got 2 more best bets that we're going to get to throughout the show, but for now, let's take it to the progressive guest line and get some best bets from our friend over at Three-Man Weave, Jim Root, as he joins the show. Jim, how are you, man?
I'm good. Excited to be talking college hoops. You know, less than 4 weeks away from Selection Sunday, Super Bowl over. It's good to have everybody diving into the deep end of college basketball with me.
Yeah, and you're diving in really deep. Let's start with one of your plays. What is this? Over in the Horizon League. I believe the former IUPUI, right? Now IU Indy taking on Dickie V's old Detroit team. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, I saw you go Missouri Valley. I got intimidated. I felt like I had to dig even deeper, get a little bit lower for the people out there.
Wait till we get to the Summit League, folks.
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking the road team here, IU Indy. A team that has been awful the last 3 seasons, but this year they've kind of had a mini rejuvenation. They're basically a team, people that are familiar with Drake, where they hired a D2 coach and he brought a bunch of starters with. That's exactly what IU Indy did. They hired the coach of University of Indianapolis. He came with a couple players, and they started to trend up. And Detroit has been a little bit of a mess with injuries. They're missing one starting guard in the backcourt. Basically a different lineup every single game out there for Detroit. And IU Indy's got a lot more consistency, some continuity from last year, given that they brought so many guys with from D2. So I'll take them as a road dog, or pick them. I think it's gotten to at circa. I think people are moving this line the right way. I like IU Indy there.
Jim, always great to see you. I'm sure you're getting about 1 million phone calls these days now that the Super Bowl's over. Like, hey, you want to come on and do this, do that? Always good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'm going to go to the easier conference. I'll go to Big East. St. John's on the road at DePaul. St. John's laying 12.5, 142.5 in this game. Where are you looking?
Yeah, I'm going to lay the 12.5. I did think about going with the under because I think DePaul's just really struggling to score lately without Connor Enright. They're kind of disturber point guard. He gets in the lane. He's just kind of a little menace, and he's out for the season. But DePaul is also missing their big guy, NJ Benson. He's kind of the rebounder, shot blocker, enforcer in the paint. You take both those guys away, and that pushed me over to St. John's to lay the points. It's not a good spot for St. John's for people that are really into that. You know, you're at this sandwich between going against Creighton for the top of the Big East and hosting UConn on Sunday in the rematch at Madison Square Garden. So that's not awesome. But I do think St. John's is a little bit more immune to spots because of how they play. It's a very shot volume related style where they beat you on, they get the offensive glass, they dominate the turnover battle. It's a little like Houston last night. Hey, they beat Arizona and they still went down and controlled everything against Arizona State. I think St. John's can do that here in Chicago, about a mile and a half away from me in the South Loop. I think St. John's will take care of business there against a very, very short-handed DePaul team.
Yeah, I think they're immune to spots too because of the guy running the show over there. Jim, did you see the clips on social media of Rick Pitino and that Vice special that they're running on St. John's? What are your thoughts on the job Pitino's done there now in year 2 and what this team's ceiling might be as we start, peeking at obviously the championship market and some Final Four markets as well come March?
Yeah, Pitino's a wizard. You just look at every record that he's breaking or tying. It's the longest Big East win streak they've had since the year they went to the Final Four in the 90s. He's just been completely remarkable, reasserting himself as one of the best coaches in the sport. That halftime speech was interesting. I like kind of calling out the guys, and it tells you the relationship that he has with them, where he can kind of go at them like that, and it's a rallying cry, not a belittling type of thing. They take it positively and come out in the second half and start to look awesome. I did like his son Richard Pitino's tweet in response to it, saying he had nightmares of the day he forgot to make his bed, based on Rick's rant at that point. But Rick Pitino's is as good as you get in the college game, and the ceiling for St. John's, I don't think they can win a national title. I'm sorry to the New York fans that are probably rallying around the team, but there's just a little offensive potency that's missing. But I think they can go to a Final Four, just the way they dominate the glass and the turnover battle, like I said, and their defense is so strong. I just worry once they get on that big national stage that a really, really good opponent is going to be able to outplay them.
Yeah, I think I saw, and I don't have this number right in front of me, so I want to try to be as accurate as possible, but I believe the last 2 teams to make the Final Four shooting 33% or less from beyond the arc were Pitino's Louisville teams in 2012 and 2013. This St. John's team shooting just 29% from deep. Look, I grew up a St. John's fan. I'm just enjoying the success, while we have it in front of us, man, because I've never seen anything like this at a St. John's in my lifetime. All right, let's get weird with it again. We were talking about some mid-major action. South Dakota. This Coyotes team is one that I had a best bet on last week against Missouri, Kansas City. It shouldn't have been a sweat, became a sweat. They can score with anyone, but they don't play a whole lot of defense. They're hosting St. Thomas, and they're 3.5-point dogs against St. Thomas. What's your play here?
Not a whole lot of defense indeed. For a while, they were like an automatic over team this year. Yeah. And you want to talk about automatic over. The first game between these two was in regulation, 119 to 104. There was 0 defense played. St. Thomas won that one at home, controlling it by 15 basically the whole way. So I am intrigued by the over, but I'm going to go with the road favorite here, St. Thomas. They are coming off a big win to assert themselves atop the Summit standings. It's a little like the St. John's spot, but I still trust them. I think they're the better team, the better coach team. They're better on both ends, and I think they're going to score at will, just like they did in the first matchup against South Dakota. I think they're at 1.55 points per possession for all the analytical nerds out there. It was crazy. Every time down, they were able to get a bucket. I think that happens again here. I'll lay the 3.5 on the road. This one is a little anti-market. I think it was 4 earlier and has come down now a half point, but I'll take it. I'll take the extra half point because I can win on 4 now. So I'll take the Tommies on the road there at South Dakota.
I love it. The Johnnies, the Tommies, just betting on all. Yeah, soon we'll work the St. Bonaventure Bonnies, my alma mater, into the conversation. Jim, I could tell by the flag behind you that you are obviously a big Crimson Tide fan, and they're taking on...
how dare you.
We've got Alabama, Missouri this evening, and the 15th ranked Mizzou Tigers are now laying, I believe this one opened with Bama minus 1.5. Missouri now laying 1.5 in Columbia. Bama coming off a loss. They're 3-0 against the number after a loss this year. This will be their fourth such opportunity. As objectively, or I mean, frankly, as subjectively as you'd like to be, just have fun with it. What's your breakdown of this game?
Man, yeah, it is an interesting, like, is Bama going to be let down a little by the home rivalry loss, or is it going to be kind of the rallying cry when now they go on the road? I will say I've struggled a little to nail down my alma mater here, Missouri. I haven't always gotten them right this year, but I did think they would control that game at Georgia, and they impressively did. Since SEC play started, they're playing like a top 10 team in the country. If you filter Bart Torvik for January 1st, Missouri has been the slightly better team here. So I'm not stunned to see them as a favorite. But man, I think it's going to be a tough one. The amount of scoring that Alabama brings to the table, it's going to be a back and forth battle. No surprise that the total is way up there, approaching 170. That might be the most appealing part of it for me. I'm having a tough time figuring out the side. But I think it makes a lot of sense that this is going to be a seesaw back and forth battle. We just saw Alabama be ice cold from beyond the arc against Auburn. Wouldn't be surprised to see more of those shots go in. And I think Missouri can still attack some mismatches on defense with Alabama. We've got a couple weaker defenders on the floor. So I'm liking points there. I'm unwilling to commit to a side, but of course, you know who I'm rooting for.
Yeah, that's no secret with the black and gold behind you. How about as we wrap it up here, one of your alma mater's biggest rivals taking on Alabama's biggest rival, Arkansas, Auburn. The Auburn Tigers laying like 16 and a hook in this one. I mean, two longtime decorated SEC coaches, Coach Cal taking on Bruce Pearl. Do you think 16 and a half points going up against Calipari and the Razorbacks is too many?
I do. I was kind of surprised this didn't get bet down a little bit more by the spot bettors, looking at Auburn coming off that incredible road performance, now back home. This is a scary place to back a road team. The Jungle has been a house of horrors for basically the entire SEC, except Florida, who went in there and had an outstanding performance. But just the way Arkansas has been playing since Boogie Flan went out, it seems like roles have actually made a little bit more sense. Nelly Davis, the FAU transfer, has kind of asserted himself as the star. Adutiro has been a tough guy to stop at that 4 spot. Maybe Auburn struggles with his athleticism. I just think it's too many points given the spot, given the way that Arkansas is playing. I think they can hang around there, which, again, scary in the Jungle, but I like the Razorbacks there.
Jim, absolutely fantastic stuff, man. I really appreciate the time. Thanks for hopping on.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Second Chance Points. Our friend Jim Root from over at the 3-Man Weave. Kelly, do you think he's going to refuse to ever come on again after I made that Alabama quip?
He better not, or else you're going to screw up my whole next few months. That's for sure. But
that's what I tried to do, man. I got 2 weeks on the show. I'm like, how many things can I mess up in 2 weeks?
I burn this whole thing down to the ground. Yeah, you better be careful with that Bama bet today. You work with a lot of Mizzou grads. There's a lot on the show.
Dude, my landlord might kick me out with having Bama as one of my best bets. We'll dive into why I love the Crimson Tide up next. It's a numbers game. He's Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo.
The numbers told the story, they always do.
It's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
This is a numbers game with Gil Alexander on VSiN.
Hour 2 of a numbers game, taking you through this Wednesday morning, February 19th, alongside Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo, and I'm excited to take things back over to our progressive guest line here as we welcome in VSiN Zone. You catch him daily, almost daily, JVT, on VSiN Primetime. I could never keep up with the schedule with the little 3-man rotation you, Tim, and Matt have going on there. But, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you hopping on.
The little 3-man rotation. Appreciate that. Yes, I am on pretty much daily. The only day I'm not on is Thursday. Correct.
Okay, so a staple in your VSiN primetime viewing. JVT, a lot of college hoops action tonight. Obviously, the NBA second half does tip off. We'll call it the diet tip-off, the tip-off light with one game, and then really gets jam-packed that NBA slate tomorrow. Starting in college, though, the SEC game I feel like everyone's talking about is Alabama, Missouri, rightfully so. But there's a lot of other action in that conference going on tonight. Which game do you have circled?
Yeah, I think Kentucky and Vandy's obviously pretty fascinating here. We're looking at only about 4.5 in favor of Kentucky. We know that Lamont Butler is still hurt. We know that Jackson Robinson is still hurt. Both are not going to play here in this game. But I feel like we're getting kind of cheap here on Kentucky, especially when you're talking about 4.5, Joe. Like, I don't think it's a surprise that Kentucky is injured. We knew that this was going to happen coming into this game, but markets come down from 5.5, 6 in some spots, as low as 4.5, as I mentioned. It's really painted across the board. I know DK's starting to dip as well. I think that this is one where maybe you sit back and see how cheap this gets, but if this gets a little bit lower, look, even with the 2 injuries, I would say Kentucky still rates as a better team than Vanderbilt. And the number right now would tell you maybe there's a point difference depending on what you rate home court here for Rupp Arena at this point right now. So I'm going to be monitoring this to see if this gets a little bit lower. But Kentucky, even with the injuries, I think should definitely be on the viewpoint here. We know what Vandy is. We've seen them at home. They have had some pretty good moments. But again, from a rating standpoint, this really sticks out to me that this is getting cheap with Kentucky, even with the injuries. So I will be monitoring to see if this gets to that 3.5 mark. And if we get to 3.5, I'll be in on Kentucky.
John, you're one of the network's Mountain West Conference experts. Where are you looking at there tonight?
So there's 2 games that are worth mentioning here. The first, 7:37, 7:38 to give Matt Humans right to the rotation. You got to find it.
You and Jim Root today, making the fans happy.
Oh, yeah, of course, you got to do it. San Jose State's on the road against Utah State, and they're catching 19.5 now at some spots against the Aggies. And look, San Jose State is very injured. Their top 2 scorers have been missing the last 2 contests, so it's been a little bit of an issue. But, guys, if you remember, against Nevada, without their top 2 scorers, they pushed Nevada in the first half, let go of the rope in the second half, ended up getting smoked by the Wolfpack. But I think they were trailing or leading by 2 at the break on Friday night against the Wolfpack here. Yep. And then, of course, without their top 2 scorers, pushed San Diego State to the brink. So now we're up to 19 here against Utah State. And we don't know whether or not these guys are going to be available tonight, but I feel like, again, San Jose State, at the very least, you might be able to look at this team in the first half and get a pretty good effort from this squad. They're very well coached. Tim Miles is an awesome head coach. He's done a great job with the team that doesn't really have that much. They're the best cover team in the country, as you see there right there, 18-6-1. And part of that is the way that they are coached and their scheme. So I really do like the San Jose State squad. I want to see where this gets to and monitor the injury report to see whether or not you're going to get Aduje out there for sure, as well as his teammates. So I think that this is definitely worth looking at here. San Jose State against Utah State. That's such a big number. Will McClendon, the other name that you should monitor. And then really quickly, I'm going to bring this up because I'm on with Mitch today on Follow the Money, filling in for Paulie. New Mexico and Boise State. Boise State's now a 4.5-point favorite, total of 152.5. Again, if we go by pure market, like, hey, where do you rate these 2 teams under neutral? I would say this number is a little out of whack because this would tell you that Boise State's rates slightly better on a neutral court. I don't believe that to be the case. I love this New Mexico team. They've been running very hot, although the last 2 games they've needed comebacks against Wyoming and Utah State to get it done. But situationally, and this is, I think, the interesting aspect, it makes much more sense to play Boise. New Mexico has been running hot. Boise's playing their first home game in 2 weeks, have not been playing particularly well, coming off of a beatdown at the hands of San Diego State on the road against the Aztecs. They're a much better home team than they are on the road. And I think the market's overvaluing the situation. And we have so many different spots throughout the year, guys, where the market has been too heavy on these situational spots. Last night's a good example. Villanova got up to a 10-point underdog at one point yesterday. They closed about 8.5. Never really got into it. You never really were threatened until that final possession in terms of not covering that number. And I think this is one of those, again, where as much as I love this Boise State spot, I thought this was going to be more like 2.5, and we're up to 4.5 in some spots. And I'd be very much maybe trying to push against the grain here, despite the negative situational spot for the Lobos.
Yeah, I thought this would be closer to a pick'em too. How about the job the other Patino is doing at New Mexico this year? St. John's and New Mexico, both Patino-led squads, both 22-4 this season. That'll be a good story to see come March if maybe they get placed in the same quadrant of the bracket. JVT, before we hit the NBA, one last game I wanted to get your thoughts on. Alabama, Missouri. Saw last night Bama was favored by a point and a half in some shops. Now pretty much universally catching 1.5 coming off the loss against Auburn. They are 3-0 against the number after a loss this year. What are your thoughts about this game?
I really like this Missouri squad a lot, and I think they deserve a little bit more respect here at home, Joe. And look, I think Alabama is a very good team, obviously. They've been treating teams relatively well. I think, though, we saw some of the flaws for this team defensively when you looked at that Auburn game over the weekend. And SEC play their 9th in defensive efficiency. They're giving up about 106.7 points per 100 possessions. I think they have some flaws on that end that can be exposed against some high-end offensive teams. And you're getting that here with Missouri, a team that is top 10-ish when you're talking about offensive rating in the country, a team that can spread the floor, shoot the ball extremely well, moves the ball around too. I really like what Missouri brings to the table. And I do think that you deserve a little bit more respect here at home. And I would say this too, again, talking about these situations, I mean, I wouldn't want to just blindly bet Alabama here on the bounce back. And I think that was initially rated here into this number. I think the market's getting this right and pushing this back down. And I know it's only Georgia, but I was really impressed with Missouri over the weekend. It was a 3-point deficit for them at the half. They smoked the Bulldogs in the second half on the road. This is a team that I think is formidable. I think you can argue they're the third best team here in the SEC, and that demands a little bit more respect. And for Alabama, I think big picture too, just really quickly, this stretch that they're going to go on, very big in determining what this one seed is going to be for them. They're like minus 350 the other day to get a one seed, but I would be very much looking at Houston to maybe kind of snatch that from them down the stretch because their schedule, Missouri, Kentucky, Miss State, which, by the way, big win for them yesterday, looked very formidable. Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn. It's going to be a gauntlet for them to end the year, and I think that you could get them to slip from that one seed status.
John, NBA back in action tonight. I've added a couple things over the break. Any futures bets or win totals or awards or anything like that you've bet here over the past week?
No, so I did bet. There's not really much that I bet from a futures perspective, Kelly. I have this win total contest that I have entered out here in Las Vegas, and you're in it too.
Yeah.
So I'm very much
check in
like
on that.
yeah. So, dude, I have like a spreadsheet that's like on all the win totals. I'm tracking them all and everything like that. But like I'm very much invested. And then the win totals that I've actually got that are going to be really sweats. But I will say this because I heard you the other day, and I do think that is very much worth looking at. Toronto. I completely agree with what you were talking about the other day. They're a team that I think wants to win, that is going to push the pedal on this. They're not going to be one like Philly that I think now is going to, I keep saying get bleep or get off the pot when it comes to this top 6 protected pick. I think it's time that they're going to bleep, right? I think they're going to crap it and they're going to go down to the tank and willingly try to get this top 6 protected selection while Toronto's going to make this push. And I would very much think they agree with you over on a win total. I think it's a sneaky. Now it's going to be it's going to have to be a grind here, Kelly. But if we're right about Philly and Chicago is terrible, you can find Toronto at like 12-1 to participate in the Eastern Conference play-in. I think that's going to be an interesting sweat down the stretch because I think they're going to try to push for that. And if Ingram comes back at some point, they can absolutely push for it. So I think Toronto's there. And I'll mention this really quickly. I brought this up to Paul too. I have Atlanta to make the playoffs at about 2-1 from a couple of months ago. They're playing much better. I would also very much recommend 5 or 6-1 to win the Southeast Division. That division sucks. They are all within a half game of each other, and yet it is Orlando who is the favorite. It is Miami who is above them too. They're near picks to win that division, and then here you have Atlanta in much better competitive form down the stretch into the All-Star break. I think that when you look at 3 teams all within a half game of each other, I'll take the team that has been playing a little bit more competitive basketball heading into the All-Star break at 6-1 when I don't think there's that much separating those 3 in that division.
Yeah, this guy next to me has been trying to talk me into that bet for a week now.
All week. Like. I mean, you got plus 105. I mean, the last I saw on DraftKings, Orlando plus 105, Miami plus 160, Atlanta like 9-2. I mean, you got to go for it.
Yeah, and I added yesterday Raptors. I went back to bed again after the show, and that number had run out already. So I did add 30 plus wins at plus, I think it was like 3-1, something like that. I'm with you though. Like I got close to the play-in tournament price. I can't bash anybody who wants to go there with that. Games going. We got the Lakers and Hornets in action tonight, and then big slate tomorrow. Any bets that you've made so far, either tonight or looking ahead to tomorrow?
I mean, I haven't made this yet because I'm going to monitor the injury report. We know that LeBron got everybody mad because he didn't participate in the All-Star game. But I think that, look, Charlotte, I might regret this, but I think that this Lakers team is going to be pretty bad on defense. I think we've seen examples of that in the 2 games right before the All-Star break, right? Utah in the first matchup out in L.A. ends up getting over their team total there. In the second half has an offensive rating of 118. And then in the rematch in Utah right before the break, they absolutely smoke them, drop 130, offensive rating of about a 132 or something like that. I think that this is going to be a problem for L.A. And so I don't know if I trust them laying these big numbers, even against lesser opponents like Charlotte. Charlotte, too, got a positive injury report. Looks like LaMelo Ball is going to be out there. Mark Williams, despite the fact that the Charlotte Hornets don't want him, is going to be available as well. And there's no real threat at center that is going to tear him up like Anthony Davis did. If you remember, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago when Anthony Davis ripped him a new one and then the Charlotte Hornets had to come back, sneak inside of that number. I think this team could be pretty competitive here. So 12 seems like a big number, but again, I would sit back and wait. If LeBron's going to get upgraded, then you can sit there and grab maybe 13 by the time this thing gets to that point where we're going to get to tip off. But I think the Hornets are going to be pretty live here tonight.
JVT, real quick, like 15 seconds or less. Phoenix, their live total is 40.5 wins. They'd have to go 15-13 to go over that. Do you stay under? Kelly and I are both into that under.
I mean, they've burned me already. I have them to win 55+ games, so I'm going to say under. I hate them.
Oh, wow. JVT, great stuff, man. Really appreciate you hopping on.
Good to talk to you guys. Thanks.
Make sure you catch him today on Follow the Money, coming up at, 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern. More NBA Western Conference win total talk on the other side. He's Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo. It's a numbers game.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Folks, sports betting never slows down, and neither should you. With the NBA and NHL in full swing, second halves resuming momentarily there, the PGA Tour underway, March Madness around the corner, and MLB opening day coming up, the action never stops. So start betting smarter with a VSiN Pro subscription. For as little as $9.99, you'll get a daily email with all the plays from hosts and their guests. Expert analysis, deep dive stats, and exclusive insights, too, to help you make the smartest picks. Don't place your bets unprepared. Get full access today for just $9.99 your first 30 days at vsin.com/subscribe. A numbers game continues alongside Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo, taking you through this Wednesday morning, February 19th edition of the program. And now, taking you back to our progressive guest line as we get ready to talk some NBA awards, some college hoops futures as well with our friend Michael Montesano. Mike, how you doing today? Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. I want to look at one particular awards market with you off the bat because I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to me, especially with all of the drama that has surrounded Jimmy Butler in South Beach this year and now getting an opportunity to kind of take the reins to this Miami Heat team. Let's talk most improved player. It seems like it's a two-man race between Cade Cunningham, -105 on the DraftKings odds board, Norm Powell catching $1.05. And then you look down the list, and there's Tyler Hero all the way at 16-1. Should he be priced shorter than this, given the fact that he is now, like I said, kind of taking the reins from Jimmy when it comes to this Miami team?
He definitely should be priced shorter. I mean, I think Kelly has mentioned it on the show. I took Hero at 50-1 a couple months back, and I think he was the favorite at one point. If you're just going to go look, I use 3 categories: the points per game increase, the PER, which player efficiency rating increase, and the win share increase to kind of see where everyone is. And, you're looking at Cade Cunningham, he's increased 2.7 points per game. Norm Powell has had a tremendous year, 10.3 points per game, and Tyler Hero 3.1. If you look at player efficiency rating, the increase, Cade Cunningham 2.9, Norm Powell 5.5, and Tyler Hero 3.3. But then when we go to the win shares, who's more important to their team, it's Cade Cunningham plus 1.0, Norm Powell plus 0.7, and Tyler Hero plus 2.6. Wow. So I do think if there is, and I think that, Hero's usage will increase over the next couple of months now that Butler is not there. He is worth a look at 16-1 right now. But if I'm going to give the winner as of today, the winner is Norm Powell. I mean, Norm Powell has gone from 13 points a game to 24 points a game, and I know his role has increased. But he, a few years back, if you look back and when he was playing around the same minutes he is this year, I think he had like 1 year he was averaging like 17 a game. So he's really improved his play a lot, and it's tough to overlook in this market, points per game and player efficiency rating. And Cade's already been a great player. I mean, I guess we can go back to the Ja Morant thing a couple of years ago. But I would give it as of today to Norm Powell, but I think Hero is going to close that gap as we go on.
Yeah, it is interesting, Michael. I agree with you. If I was jumping in right now, I do think if you wanted to bet some Hero at 16-1, I don't know that he's going to win it, but I think he gets more into the mix here down the stretch than the numbers currently indicate. The Norm Powell one is fascinating. He's the only guy really I don't have any exposure to on the board. You tipped me to Hero the one night. We got into that together at 50-1. I'm in on Cade Cunningham from preseason. Norm Powell's the only guy I really don't have anything on. I know Gil does. You do. Should have joined you when you did. I don't know how they're going to handle his case just because it's an interesting case that we don't often see. And I'm not saying right, wrong, bad. He should win, shouldn't win. It's just he is a guy that was just put in a position of coming off the bench for so long, and now a lot of it is just getting the minutes. And would I have guessed that he would have done it this well and I've been a Norm Powell fan for so long? No, I wouldn't have. But I just don't know how voters are going to handle that. I think it's really interesting. Whereas over the past couple of years, we have seen how they handle cases like Cade Cunningham's, right?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult, but I think voters are simpletons, and they're just going to kind of go maybe look at that points per game or even play. I think one status player efficiency rating, and Powell's got a plus 5.5 in player efficiency rating. I mean, he's really improved, and like I said, a few years ago, if you go back and look at his numbers, he did play like 32 minutes a game, and he was averaging like 17 points a game. So this is a nice step up from him, not only from those years, but from last year as well.
Yeah, 41 starts that year, too. I think that is a good year to compare it to more recently when he was strategically being brought off the bench. Right. I think it's a great points all around. Let's go to Defensive Player of the Year. I know this is one that you've been kind of tracking all year. Look, the odds say this is done. Wemby's won it, and it's all over. Is there a bet here, or let me phrase it differently? Should this race be closer than what it is?
The race absolutely should be closer than what it is based on what happened last year. Okay, I was on Gil's show last year preaching to the choir about Wemby's on-off splits. Wemby's the best defensive overall player, and everyone kept going back to, well, he's not on a top-ranked defense. We can't give it to him because he's not on a top-ranked defense. Okay, so we fast forward to this year. He has basically the same counting stats as last year. Last year's counting stats were 13.2, and the counting stats are defensive rebounds per game plus blocks per game plus steals per game. He's up 0.9 from last year. His minutes have increased by 4. Okay, but his team has gotten worse from a month ago. They were 12th in team defensive rating a month ago. Now they're 22nd. His individual defensive efficiency rating is just where it was last year. He hasn't gotten any better. His defensive win shares has not gotten any better. His defensive blocks plus minus has not gotten any better. There are players that are above him in all these categories, but now we have ESPN, the voters at ESPN, they're looking at, we're just going to give it to Wem because he has the most blocks and this, that, and the other. And now I have to hear ESPN talking about on-off splits. Well, we were talking about on-off splits last year. Yeah. So if it didn't matter last year, it shouldn't matter this year. And you have a team in Oklahoma City that has 2 of the top defensive players in the league, and it's not Lou Dort. Lou Dort is not a top defensive player. He was given that reign by Chris Mannix and Doris Burke because he stopped Brown from Boston and Mitchell from Cleveland. They had 2 bad games when he covered them for most of the game. The top 2 defensive players in the league are Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams. If you even want to go further, we can go to Zubac from the Los Angeles Clippers. He's having a tremendous year. Amen Thompson having a tremendous year. Victor Wembanyama has the counting stats. He has not made his team better defensively this year, and they're only getting worse.
I love how adamant you are about the argument. You just mentioned SGA. Now, maybe not to the degree of the Defensive Player of the Year market where Wemby's a minus 2,000 favorite, but SGA does have a firm hold on this market for the MVP, minus $5. Jokic, plus 350. Is that worth a bet?
Well, after the straw poll, that Tim Bontemps straw poll that just came out, I don't know if it's worth a bet, but I think personally, I bet him plus 450 a few weeks ago. He's number 1 in player efficiency rating. And not only is he number 1, he's having one of the greatest seasons of all time per the PER numbers. Go back 15, 20 years as of today. Now, could that change? Obviously it can. He's number 1 in win shares. He's number 1 in win shares per 48 minutes. He's number 1 in box plus minus. And he's number 1 in value over replacement. You can go to all those. You can go to Basketball Reference and view all those numbers. Shai is number 2 in all them, but Shai is getting the votes because Shai leads the league in points per game, and he's on the best team. We always talk about the best team, but the best player is Nikola Jokic, and it's not even close. But unfortunately, I don't think he's going to win it this year, even though I just made a bet on him. I think, again, we have the group thinkers. They're all talking about Shai. But if you look at the numbers, all the numbers, Jokic is the MVP. But again, this would be 4 and 5 years. We could have voter fatigue with that.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say there's definitely voter fatigue. It's amazing to be averaging a triple-double, and people just, they're like, well, that's expected at this point. Expected greatness often goes unnoticed. Final minute here, Michael. How about some college hoops futures? What are you into in that market?
Yeah, I have two to make the Final Four. I mean, I have a portfolio to win national championships. No one wants to hear what numbers I got with Alabama and Florida and Kentucky. No one wants, so I'm not talking, but I'm going to say as of today, to make the Final Four, Florida plus 165. It looks like per Joe Leonardi, they're going to ship them out. They're going to ship them out west. If you look at the top 4 seeds, I like them. Now, a nice underdog, a nice price is Michigan State 10-1. If they are put in the East with Duke, I think they have an excellent shot. It's one of Izzo's best offensive teams he's had in several years. And we all know Izzo magic in March. He has the defensive rating. And again, it's just to get to the Final Four. They're 10-1 at DraftKings. I like both of those numbers today.
Wouldn't be the first time Izzo ended Duke's season in March. They took down that Zion-led team, of course, some years back. Mike, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Michael Montesano with us there, talking NBA awards markets and some college hoops Final Four futures as well. We'll get into my college hoops action. Best bets up next. He's Kelly Bidlin. I'm Joe Serralo. It's a numbers game.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high-quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.